everybody. It's Craig Faniani again from the Sacramento Jazz Education Foundation, and we're going to talk about chords for the next couple of lessons. We're finally to a place we've done scales, we've done the circle, we've done pairs of notes as intervals, and now we're going to get to talk about triads and seventh chords. So we're going to concentrate mainly on 3-note chords, triads, and 4-note chords, seventh chords. You're probably going to want to know what a chord is first, and a chord is just simply a group of notes. The ones we're going to talk about will start on the root, and they'll go up in thirds. We know thirds from our interval lessons, and they will go in odd numbers. So it's going to be 1, 3, 5 or 1, 3, 5, 7 for now, and then we're going to figure out what kind of things happen in and around those sequences. Okay, we're going to start with something very simple because that's the best way, and it also gives us a template as to find chords, manipulate them, manufacture them, and whatnot. So here is the C major scale, and I always refer back to this on the piano because there's no sharps and flats, and that gives us a chance to see clearly what's going on. We're going to build thirds on each of the scale tones of the C major scale. So you can see here that we're going to put an E on top of the C, we're going to put an F on top of the D, we're going to put a G on top of the E, and so on. Now, from your interval training, you might be able to realize then that the first third, which is C to E, the third that's built on the C, is a major third because it's the third that's in the C major scale. Now, the next one, the note that's built on top of the D, the F, is not a major third. It would need to have an F sharp if it was going to be the major third, but in this case it's flatted, and you know from the interval rules that that is called a minor third. And you're going to find that as we go up, we're only going to have major and minor thirds. Okay, so let's go to the next one, E to G. E to G is a minor third because G sharp would be the major third, so that's a minor third. F to A is a major third because the key of F only has a B flat, it doesn't touch the A. So F to A is a major third. G to B is also a major third because it's only accidental in the key of G as an F sharp. So G to B is a major third. A to C is a minor third because the key of A would need a C sharp, and we don't have that. We're lowering the C sharp to a C. So A to C is a minor third. And then B to D is also a minor third because the key of B would have a D sharp, and we're going to have a D natural instead, so it's a minor third. So we can step back and look at that, and we can see that we've got 3 intervals that are major thirds and 4 intervals that are minor thirds. Okay? It might be surprising to you because you might think, well, gee, most of the chords are major. And they really aren't. So it's not overwhelmingly one way or the other, but there are more minor sounding chords than there are major. Okay, let's stack another third on top of our first 2 notes. And we're going to stack a fifth now. So it's going to be letter-wise. It's going to be back to, like I always say, use your alphabet. So we're going to be back to stacking. We're going to skip a letter and then go to the next letter. You can also look at these as 1, 3, 5s. So we're going to be stacking odd numbers as well as thirds. Okay, so it turns out all of the fifths in our chords are perfect fifths, except for the 7th. And that's the one, remember how the Locrian scale is built on the 7th? It's got the flatted 5th, same thing here. So it has a diminished 5th, a diminished 5th. That's going to be important later on to talk about because it's the only chord that has that of the ones we're going to talk about. Okay, now when you look at these chords, you're going to see what characteristics they have. And we're going to be able to see that the 1 and the 4 and the 5 are major triads because they have a major third. And then the 2, 3, and 6 are minor triads. Now, the 7 is a diminished triad because it's a stack of 2 minor thirds, and none of the other chords have that. If you take a major chord and flat the 3rd and 5th, you'll get a diminished chord, triad. And if you take a minor chord and flat the 5th, you'll get a diminished triad. So you can manufacture it either way you want to, okay? So that's what we have. The 1, 4, and 5 are major triads. The 2, 3, and 6 are minor triads. And the 7th chord is a diminished triad. Now we're going to add Roman numerals. The Roman numerals are going to reflect the fact that the chords are major or minor or diminished. When you get to the diminished one, you're going to see the little circle, and that stands for diminished. So the uppercase Roman numerals are major, and the lowercase Roman numerals are minor, and you put a circle on it if it's diminished. Now we're going to do the chord quality. You can see which ones are major and which ones are minor. All right, now we're going to put the next note on top of these chords, and it is called the seventh. So we've gone 1, 3, 5, and now 7. So we've stayed with the odd numbers, and we're also still stacking thirds. Now, you might remember that the seventh is an imperfect interval, and so we're not going to have any augmented or diminished sevenths, but we're going to have all major and minor. So we're going to stack the first one. For the one chord, you can see we're starting with a major triad, and then we're adding a major 7. Remember that the major 7 is a half step below the root, and a minor 7 is a whole step below the root, so we can easily find those notes to see which ones are added. If it's a half step below the octave, then you'll know that it's major 7. But the most common seventh in these chords is going to be the minor 7. Okay, so the first chord has a major triad and a major 7. I'm going to call it a major major. Major major, okay? The second chord has a minor triad and it has a minor 7, because you can see that the seventh of the D chord is a C, which would be a minor 7th, as opposed to the C sharp, which would be the major 7th. Okay, I'm going to call that a minor minor chord. Minor triad, minor 7th. Got it? All right. The 3 chord is going to start with a minor triad as well, and its 7th is also minor. It's a D, not a D sharp. So I'm going to call that one a minor minor as well. Same exact kind of chord as the 2 chord. Okay, the 4 chord has a major triad and it has a major 7th, because E is a half step below F, so that means it's a major 7. So it's a major major. It's just the same form as the 1 chord, major major. The 5 chord is a little different. It's got a major bottom, a major triad, and it's got a minor 7th for the top. So we're going to call that one a major minor. It's pretty unique, actually, and extremely common, but it's a very important chord. It's called a dominant 7 chord, and the reason it's called a dominant 7 chord, and by the way, don't look this up on Wikipedia, because there are so many silly answers about this. Something about, being really strong and pushy. It's all the notes in a scale have a name. The 1 is a tonic, the 2 is a supertonic, the 3 is the mediant, the 4 is a subdominant, the 5th note is called the dominant degree of the scale, 6 is submediant, 7 is leading tone, and then we have the octave. So the only chord in this system that is of the form major minor is the one built on the dominant degree of the scale. So it's called a dominant 7 chord. However, a lot of people just call any chord that has the form major minor, they call that a dominant 7 chord too. It's not really technically a dominant 7 chord, but that's what we call it. So don't be confused. Okay, the 6th chord has a minor triad, as you can see, and it has a minor 7 as well. It's a minor minor. It's our 3rd minor minor in the system. The 7 chord is going to be different. It's got a diminished triad and a minor 7 on the top. We're going to call it a diminished minor, but it is commonly called a half-diminished chord. You might also see a B half-diminished chord written B minor 7 flat 5. It's the same exact thing. To be clear, when you put the minor 7th on top of the diminished chord, you have to put a line through the diminished circle, and that changes it to half diminished. The triad part is diminished, and the 7th is minor, so it's half diminished. All right, let's step back and look at those now. We can see that the 1 and the 4 are the same type of chord. In fact, in chord progressions, they can sort of be almost substituted, kind of played back and forth and almost interchangeable. The 2, 3, and the 6 are minor minor chords. They're all built the same way. They're minor minors, minor minors. The 5 chord is the dominant 7 chord, the major minor chord. And the 7 chord is the diminished minor chord, built on the 7. Or half diminished, as the symbol indicates. Now, chord symbols and terminology aren't real exact. Some people use a minus for minor. The major 7 chord can sometimes be written with an MAJ7 or a capital M7. Sometimes I use a triangle 7 just for shorthand. So you have to watch and see what the particular person is using for their symbol for that. The dominant 7 chord is just written with the most simple name because it's used the most. So a C7 chord is just C7. A minor 7 chord is written C minor 7, and the M is lowercase, and it goes with the triad. It's not a C with a minor 7, it's a C minor with a minor 7, okay? Just know that the little m goes with the chord itself. So from these chords, we're going to be able to make chord progressions. And you can play virtually any song by knowing these chords that we've just talked about. So in the next lesson, we're going to talk about some chord progressions and see how they work and see what voicings are best to use with these chords and look at the inversions. Inversions means we're going to turn them upside down or make them not be 1, 3, 5, 7. We're going to change the order of the notes. And I'll show you some really interesting ways that you can get around some chords without having to look at your hands so much, but you just feel what you want to feel on the piano. By the way, I'm going to recommend that everybody learn how to play the piano, at least learn how to play some chords so you can kind of get the idea of how your melody notes would sound in an improvised solo over the chords. So you'll have an idea what the harmony is in the song that you're playing. And on top of that, it's really important to start hearing the leading tones and what's happening in the harmony, because that's where your solo, if you're playing a single note solo, that's where it's going to grow from, and that's where your ideas are going to come from. So more on all that soon, and until then, this is Craig Faniani signing off for the Sacramento Jazz Education Foundation. Thanks for listening.